Everybody is working for the weekend, I believe somebody once said. I don't remember who said it. All I know is that sometimes the song, it gets stuck in my head. And no, I did not see Chris Farley, show up in my Twitter feed over the last couple of days. I don't know where I went with that, but it is almost the weekend, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Inside Coverage here on Yahoo, the how and the why, any and everything you need to know about the National Football League. My name is Andrew Siciliano, and this is your Week 9 preview show. This is your Halloween preview show. We thought about ranking candy bars or showing up in costume, but we decided to keep it professional because we are a professional outfit, allegedly. And this professional outfit is going to be here to professionally preview Week 9, an exciting Week 9. And then, maybe we'll talk about candy. Charles Robinson told us that he might show up. Nope, not showing up in costume. No. C-Rob, how the heck are you?
I'm good. I only have one costume in the house, and we couldn't find it. Yeah. So it's during COVID. I swear, during COVID, I dressed up as Santa Claus and did Zoom calls with a bunch of kids in the family. It was legit. It is a really legit Santa Claus costume. I will send you a photo
try that on
from
Cameo.
From it.
Yeah,
it was
C-Rob.
Dude,
it was Santa on Cameo.
Yeah, Dawn's coworkers. I did some Zoom calls with their kids. And let me tell you, Santa Claus is a powerful character to play. You ever want to feel true power over small kids? Ooh, just throw on the Santa Claus
outfit. It might
outfit.
be your most significant role. Like it is your tour de force. It is the one for which you will be remembered. Your role as Santa. Ben Fawkes is here as well, our betting expert. Ben, I don't know if you were on the group chat this morning, but if you were, did you laugh as hard as I did when Charles legitimately sent a text thinking that we were serious about showing up in costume, and he had anxiety this morning about not having a costume? Did you see that?
I had so much anxiety.
I didn't. I believe it because Charles is a professional and he wants to deliver no matter what the assignment is. And if the assignment was that we're going to be in costume, he would be all over that to the best of his ability. I used to have an Elmo costume. That was one I had for a few years. I think growing up, I was
probably hang out in Times Square Elmo costume.
I don't know if you define it as creepy. It's just one of the ones with the head. You could take the head off too, or it got pretty hot under there.
But my point was,
with that head,
you didn't use it in Times Square or on Hollywood Boulevard.
No, it was more the bars of West Hartford and Bristol. Little different scene.
I hope you did not ask people to tickle you. Please tell me you didn't.
No,
no. Okay.
None of that.
Okay. Thankfully. And by the way, this is a family-friendly show. Yesterday, when Jory mentioned not having dressed up really as an adult, I mentioned that at a Halloween party many a year ago that I dressed up as Maverick with my uncle's old flight jacket and some Ray-Bans. I found the photo. So here for a laugh, I didn't show up in costume, but this was my most recent adult Halloween costume. Actually, not the most recent. 2018. Thoughts?
A+.
Pulled it off.
Thank you.
Absolutely pulled it off. I was like, he nailed it. He nailed it. Yeah, that's
Tom
great.
Cruise and I
was very, very impressed.
Pretty much. Actually, I might be taller. Just saying, you have to obviously fit in the cockpit of the F-14. So, bam, there's my costume. However, and we'll get to the football, I promise, it is not my greatest costume ever. And for the greatest costume ever, let's go back to Glendale, 2019, before a Thursday night football game on NFL Network. And bam, that right there is the greatest costume ever shown on television. Dr. Evil and Mini-Me. On the left, Dr. Evil, the, at that point, soon-to-be Hall of Famer, Joe Thomas. And on the right, yours truly, Mini-Me, the greatest costume of all time ever pulled off on television.
It really is. It is. Man.
I thought that was Jay Billis
he really
for a
went
second.
For it. He went for it. Yeah, it does kind of look like Jay Billis from far away.
I assume you mean the tall guy, Joe Thomas, is Jay Billis and not me, right?
Yes. Listen, you have to be able to laugh at yourself, right? I think that's very important in this industry. I applaud you, and that's a great costume, and I'm sure that was a great segment, and hopefully a lot of fun to do as well.
Yeah, there were pumpkins that were smashed. Billy Corrigan not there, although Billy also bald. He could have joined us, legendary frontman of the Smashing Pumpkins, if he wanted to. I had forgotten about that one yesterday when we had talked about great costumes, but I went on the radio with my friends in Cleveland on Cleveland Browns Daily yesterday, and they brought it up, and I'm like, oh yeah, that one was pretty good. We should work it into the show. All right, we should also work football into the show.
Wait.
Yeah.
I don't know. Wait, hang on 1 second. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but I will hold up.
Okay.
All right, here you go. This is pretty good. This
we
is
have props. We have props. Right. Charles has props. Okay,
right,
let's see
if you can. Can you zoom in?
Oh, look at you!
Or is it too?
Look at you!
Too much glare.
Is that Santa C-Rob with a dog?
Yeah, I think it's too much.
I see
glare.
A big beard.
I'll send it to you guys on the chat. Yeah, the beard was pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie.
Is the dog scared, Charles?
No, she was a champ, man. She loved it. Oh, the good old days.
Well, I'm scared that people are now turning off the show. So let's get to the football. Let's preview Week 9, shall we? And as always, this is not every game on the calendar. There are 11 this week, including the Thursday night game, the Ravens and the Dolphins, which we're recording, by the way, before that game in Miami. It is 8 games early, 3 games late. There are 3 teams on a bye this week. Or actually 4, I beg your pardon. The Browns, the Jets, the Eagles, and the Buccaneers. There's 1 divisional game. It's the Vikings and the Lions. There are 3 games between teams at 500 or better. Panthers, Packers, Colts, Steelers, Chiefs, and Bills. And there are 3 games between playoff teams from last season. Again, the Vikings, Lions, the Broncos, and the Texans, and then the Sunday night affair, which we'll get to, the Chiefs and the Bills. Our first game, however, to preview for Week 9 is that 1 divisional game. It's in the NFC North. It is the 3-4 Vikings and the 5-2 Lions. This game is in Detroit. It is a Kevin Burkhardt, Tom Brady, Aaron Andrews, and Tom Rinaldi affair. Remember, the Lions swept the Vikings last year, and this is the first time they will have met since Week 18, and that game was for the number 1 overall seed last season. J.J. McCarthy is making his 3rd start. We can go through the numbers about how well Jared Goff is playing. We could talk about C-Rob, the injuries in the secondary for the Lions, but Brian Branch is back, obviously, now from his suspension. We could talk about Jahmyr Gibbs and his amazing game when last we saw him. To me, this game, if you want to make it a one headline thing for the Vikings, is Minnesota, this is your life.
Yeah.
Max Brosmer, in all likelihood, is not walking in that door. You made a decision in the offseason, or rather, you don't need him to walk through that door because that would really be bad if you have to do that. You made a decision in the offseason to go with J.J. McCarthy. He rolled his ankle up in September, and in came Carson Wentz, and he kind of sort of saved the day, but really the only team they beat was the Browns. Now, you're going to have to go with the guy that you planned to go with the entire offseason. And the results may not be good. The Lions are clearly the better team. I'm not saying go in with no expectations. I'm going in with a pragmatic view, however, Charles, if I'm a Vikings fan, that this is what we signed up for, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think we'll talk about a number of games, today that could be instructive at the trade deadline, and I definitely think that for Minnesota, if you get absolutely trucked by the Lions, if you get blown out, it puts you in a situation, if JJ does not play well, it puts you in a situation where I think now you have to sit there and go, all right, so we've lost Carson Wentz. We've lost our experienced backup. There are going to be a couple experienced backups that I think will be available at the deadline. Russell Wilson is one. I think Kirk Cousins, if a team is willing to eat salary for the rest of the season on Kirk Cousins, is another. Obviously, there's familiarity there in Minnesota. But I do think you have to very quickly look at the situation with J.J. McCarthy against the Lions and decide, as you said, are we just going to do it? We're just going to commit to this the rest of the season and hope for the best. And look, McCarthy's, I think the injury was legitimate. I don't know if it was an abundance of caution, maybe kept him out a little longer than if they had been in a playoff push and let's say J.J. McCarthy was playing well. But with the offensive line, the state that it is, and Carson Wentz got beat up, trucked behind that offensive line, you're going to be looking at J.J. McCarthy doing what he was doing before he went out, running for his life, particularly go watch the Falcons game. They cannot have a performance up front with J.J. McCarthy like they did in that Falcons game. But I'm telling you, I do think it's going to put that front office and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, the GM, and Kevin O'Connell, the head coach, it's going to put them to a decision if something dramatically bad happens against the Lions and they don't have anybody else to turn to. Do you just put J.J. McCarthy through a wood chipper the rest of the season and hope for the best?
Yeah. How long we got on this? We got 20 minutes to talk now. This is there's so much, I think, with the Vikings. Number one, I think an underrated injury not on the offense is Andrew Van Ginkel, who did practice this week, is supposedly back, had a concussion, had a neck injury. The way they were talking about the injury was very vague and kind of seemed like he might come back in a couple weeks or he might not come back this season. The drop off, unfortunately, from him to Dallas Turner is pretty big. And so I think for that defense, if he is back, Jonathan Grenard's a little banged up. He said he would play because it's the Lions. He doesn't want to miss the game. So they'll have more of the defense, I think, intact than they've had in the past. And on the offensive line, we saw that against the Rams on Thursday night. Brian O'Neill, the right tackle, was out. Christian Darrisaw played, I want to say, 10 snaps, 15 snaps. They then took him out. He's supposed to be back as well. Brian O'Neill back. So I believe outside of the center, they'll have 4/5 of the offensive line, which has not played up to the standards they thought it would when they also signed some pieces this offseason. But at least they'll have those tackles back in, which should help J.J. McCarthy, which they just haven't had the full team really healthy all season. And for the Vikings, the offensive line has been a disaster. In many seasons, it was before the interior of the offensive line. Now it has been the tackles as well as some of the interior of the offensive line. So I think with all those pieces back, it should be a more competitive game. Now this game, just to give an example, when the schedule was open back in May, this was Lions -4.5. It's currently Lions -8.5, and it is up to 9.5 at some sports books. So a big adjustment based off of how those two teams have looked. 90% of the bets at some books and the money on the Lions. The public is going to be riding them, as you would kind of expect as well. And it's hard to blame them. The Lions are also off a bye. Detroit under Dan Campbell, 52-23 against the spread since 2021. That is 69%. So you just blindly back them. You're cashing at 69%. And I think they're going to, I think the Lions will win this game. It's just a question kind of whether they cover. But I don't think this game, to Charles's point, is necessarily a referendum on everything with J.J. McCarthy, because all of these situations he's been in have been, and is defending him, have been really difficult. And understanding that was also the position that they put him in. But now, off of an injury, you're coming back against a Lions team, which I was a little surprised to look up, is number one, their defense, number one by DVOA right now. So best defense in the league by DVOA. They're off a bye. They're a little healthier. You're asking him, coming off of now in his third game that he's ever played, to go into Detroit and pull something off. That is a tall task. Now, I totally agree on the backup plan and all of that. It has not gone according to plan for the Vikings, but I think this is a game the Lions certainly win. I think 8.5 is definitely an inflated number, though.
It stood out to me. So I was listening to Kevin O'Connell yesterday, and the first 10 minutes of the press conference really are talking about Carson Wentz and why was he out there with that shoulder injury? And, did they think that they were pushing him too far? And can you play a player to truly be with himself and the team about how severe an injury is and what your pain tolerance is, all those things. But when you eventually turn to J.J. McCarthy, a couple of things stood out. Number one, to get him back last week, short week on the road against the Chargers. Yeah, he probably could have played, but that was asking a lot. You really hadn't practiced, and you don't really do practice before a Thursday night game, especially one on the road. So that wasn't ideal. And I'm not making excuses, but what O'Connell also said, and I think we forgot this, there's the narrative week 2, and he looked bad against the Falcons in primetime. There's this narrative of, oh, how cute he and his significant other, they just had a baby. How adorable. But O'Connell revealed today, and maybe he had revealed it back in September and I just missed it, that McCarthy really didn't even practice that week. against the Falcons. So he played the opener, rallied against the Bears in the fourth quarter, and then didn't practice all the next week. And then we've rushed to judgment with him out and Wentz in. I do think J.J. McCarthy can still play, but there will certainly be some ups and downs because for all intents and purposes, he is a rookie. And he's walking into a rivalry here in which the Lions have won 5 straight in this series for the first time in 62 years. And now they're trying to make it 6 consecutive. All right, that is our first game. We didn't take up too much time on that one. Let's move on to our second game. Our second game, the 3-4 Falcons on the road at the 6-2 Patriots, who were gone for a month, and now they're basically back for a month. This is a CBS game with Andrew Catalon, Charles Davis, Jason McCourty, and A.J. Ross in middle of nowhere, Massachusetts. Drake May leads the NFL in completion percentage and passer rating, because I know we all love passer rating. He has 5 games this year with 200 yards in the air and a passer rating of 135 or more. Bijan is really good, averaging 137 from scrimmage. This game, once again, feels like another referendum on a second-year quarterback, not Drake May. There are a lot of us that now think Drake May could be the guy, like passing Jaden Daniels. Why it has to be a horse race that is constantly reported upon, like that we have to redo rankings every week, is beyond me. And the same thing goes for Michael Penix, who has shown that he can play some good football and some bad football. He's still, even though he is an older second-year quarterback, a guy that is very much learning on the job. What we learned last week is that Kirk Cousins is probably not the answer. As we sit here today, Penix was still limited, C-Rob, on Thursday. If this is a Kirk Cousins game, there's no way on earth I'm picking the Falcons. If it is a Penix game, I think they have a puncher's chance. But the Patriots team that I saw last week is a team that not only is going to the postseason, I think it's a team that could win. I don't mean the whole thing, but at least get a win in January.
Yeah, I mean, Cousins, I didn't think he looked good against the Miami Dolphins.
No, it was bad.
You know, it was hard to watch. And you sit there and to me, I thought he might just be a backup now. Like I know he still has aspirations to get one more shot at starting before, he unwinds his career. But watching that Dolphins game, I like, maybe I'm being too harsh right now, but it feels like the air has really come out of that balloon, and it's probably not great for the Falcons either, because again, I do think that in that trade deadline scenario, if someone's raising their hand and saying, we'll pay his salary the rest of the year and we'll, throw a pick swap at you, there's still an opportunity for Kirk to get moved and give Atlanta an asset to work with and a little bit of salary cap space to roll into next season. But yeah, I mean, Penix right now for the Falcons, and when we talk about this with the Vikings, it sort of feels like you're reaching a now or never moment a little bit early in the season. The one thing about Penix that I'm worried about is when you look at him, his off-target or his on-target accuracy is last in the league. I think it's like 21%. And it's just got to get better. And I think that's only going to happen with playing time. I'm concerned that he's already missing a game with the knee injury. That's obviously not what you want. And I think it's affected the running game. Bijan Robinson, they've been at their best when Bijan is obviously hitting his ceiling. That offense, it feels more than potent. It feels like all the youth shows up that you see in the skill positions, and it just not, it has not been that way. And then conversely, we talk about Drake May. I know you don't like the horse race. I think that 2024 draft class, though, to me, it's fascinating because you have Chicago that's sitting there staring at Caleb Williams. And when you go on in Chicago, I went on WGN on Monday, and everything's just fans looking at it and going, why didn't we draft Jaden Daniels last year? That's all they said. Then this year, it's why didn't we draft Drake May? And it's this really interesting microcosm of these 3 quarterbacks that went at the top of that draft, and the consternation over all of them thought they had resolved the quarterback position for the next 10 plus years. And Washington had a great start. Now you're like, okay, injuries are creeping. We'll get to what's going on with Caleb Williams in Chicago. Drake May, though, looks like the guy he looked like at his peak in North Carolina. It's like every good trait that he had entering that draft has really translated. And to me, the arc has also been more natural. It's come slowly, gradually, and then you start to see these big steps.
Yeah, totally agree. Drake May, I'll always say with Frank not on, I can use QBR, but fourth in QBR this season. He's the third choice as well, plus 550 behind Patrick Mahomes. And
what's his CPOE?
That one I don't have off the top of my head. But the third best odds to win MVP, too. Only one of three players under 10-1. So he is both respect from the odds makers and the advanced stats. Patriots, a 5.5 point favorite in this one, opened up 4.5, some respected money on the Patriots, pushing that up. And the public also all over the Patriots. They've won 5 games in a row, both straight up and against the spread, which is, as you would expect, the longest streak in the league right now. They are tied atop the ATS standings at 6-2 against the spread, with the Colts as the best teams against the numbers. They've been cashing for bettors as well. And Drake May has certainly looked good. I thought interesting, though, the Patriots 17th by DVOA, but that defense, which we tend to think of, has been playing better. And I think it has, still only 28th. So the advanced number is not as much of a fan of that defense as maybe what we've seen on the eye test. Drake May, though, has looked great. And I think in terms of that MVP argument, what everyone is saying kind of with Jaden Daniels last year, he's throwing to, an older Stephon Diggs,
Yes.
Kayshon Boutte, running backs who are fumbling the ball. I think the big thing now as well, he has an offensive line. They obviously drafted Will Campbell and supported him a little more there. And he also seems to be, I can't say I've been watching every single snap of the Patriots, who also are 4-0 as a favorite. But he does seem to be protecting himself a little more in ways where you felt like he was just getting crushed last year and taking all these hits on both on scrambles and sacks, and that it was just going to become this situation that we've seen with so many young quarterbacks where they have so much promise and they're just an offensive line. They either get injured or concussions, et cetera. So I think he's doing a better job of living to survive till the next play. And he's throwing a beautiful deep ball. I mean, I saw a lot of that against the Saints, also against the Browns. Like, he stood in there. Myles Garrett had 5 sacks. I mean, he was Will Campbell. Nobody could block him. I'm not sure anyone could have blocked Myles Garrett on Sunday. And they still methodically put up points against the Browns. Also helped the Browns couldn't do much on offense. But they've kind of answered the question so far. I think the strength of schedule is a fair point. And also on this line, in terms of the Patriots not playing as many great teams outside the Bills, in terms of this line, I think this is also built in with Drake London playing. So if he doesn't play, I think this line will also bump up a little more. Patriots 6.5. And yeah, Cousins did not look like a starting quarterback. A lot of survivor pools went down, people taking the Falcons last week.
Yeah, 3 things to point out. Number one, Myles did make Will Campbell kind of look bad, and even when they were chipping, almost feel like Campbell would have been better one-on-one than with the help. Sometimes I felt like the help got in the way. When they flipped him to the other side, he also went Old Testament and made Moses look bad. He threw Morgan Moses out the club on 1 rep and got to Drake May. That's point number 1. Point number 2, I had never called a game from Foxborough before. I'd certainly been there, but had never been in the broadcast booth. It's not up in the corner where the press box is. A lot of stadiums have now gone press box in the corner. They're bad. The broadcast booths, so both radios and TV, are right at the 50-yard line at the bottom, or the top rather, of the lower deck and below the suite level, unlike anything I had ever seen. Top booth in the NFL. Well done, New England Patriots. And then the third thing I was going to say is, guys, I screwed up. Like, we were supposed to lead the show with the Chiefs and the Bills and the Steelers and the Colts, and I just flipped ahead to the B block. We did the B block games first. So fear not. The best games of the week are coming up next. Don't go anywhere on Inside Coverage. And now for something completely different. And now we're actually going to talk about the biggest games of the week. Normally you do them at the top of the show. Welcome back to Inside Coverage, the how and the why, any and everything around the National Football League that you need to know, specifically in this show for week number 9. This is our week 9 preview show. I'm Andrew Siciliano, Charles Robinson, and our betting expert, Sorry, Ben Fawkes here with us. We kind of went out of order. That's on me. 5 yards on me, although, you could make it a spot foul and make it 15 yards downfield, which is kind of how I screwed this one up. Let's get to the Chiefs and the Bills, which is our weekly game of the year. This is the 4 o'clock window on CBS with Nance and Romo and Tracy down on the sideline. This is, as it stands now, 2 playoff teams. Like right now, if the season were to end, which it doesn't, the Chiefs, the 7 seed, the Bills, the 5 seed. Not 2 seed or 1 seed, the 5 seed, because right now they would be a wild card team because the Patriots are ahead in the AFC East and they have that game in hand. So this is a battle of 2 wild card teams. As we sit here and record on Thursday, Isaiah Pacheco doesn't look like he's going to play. Ed Oliver certainly out. Maxwell Hairston back, or at least they open the window off IR up in the air. Milano and Bernard, 2 linebackers, look as if they are going to play. That is certainly significant here for a banged up Bills defense and one that has ridden the roller coaster of we get this guy back, then we lose that guy the entire season. This game boils down to this. Like, it doesn't matter who wins now. It matters who wins in January when they have the inevitable rematch. This is a rematch of last year's AFC Championship game. The Bills have beaten the Chiefs 4 straight times in the regular season. The Bills have lost to the Chiefs the last 4 times they have met in the postseason. 20, 21, 23, and 24. If you just go to January, the Bills are 7-1 against every team in the AFC in the postseason except the Kansas City Chiefs. They lose to the Kansas City Chiefs. So if the headline on Monday, guys, is Bills win, huge Bills win. Josh Allen outplays Patrick Mahomes in battle for MVP and home field and all that. Great. But I know a lot of Bills fans that will go, okay, cool. Like, it was worth the ride on Sunday. I had a good time. I'd rather have them win than lose. Certainly, and maybe this factors when it comes to where this game is going to be played when they meet again, but it's going to ring real hollow. What stands out to me is that the Bills still have trouble stopping the run. The Chiefs right now are not healthy in the backfield, offensive backfield, but that right now Kansas City's offense is humming. It's humming. 415 yards a game since week 4. Which is just absurd. Rashee Rice is back, and magically, all of a sudden, they're a juggernaut. And what also stands out to me, Charles, is that really the Bills haven't beaten anybody. They don't make the schedule, and I know they had the huge comeback week 1 against the Ravens, but that doesn't look nearly as impressive now as it did week 1. When they did go up in weight class, they faced the Patriots, and the Patriots punched them in the mouth.
Yeah. And, it's people are sick of hearing about the Chiefs, man. Just maybe turn off your TV for a couple months because this just feels like they're cranking back up. It's like 5 straight games of 28 points or more. I think Patrick Mahomes has 3 touchdowns in the last 3 games. And when you watch him, you're like, Rashee Rice walked right back in and immediately made that difference that you're wondering, can he walk in and be that number 1 and really provide a spark? Xavier Worthy's playing really well. Now you're seeing Travis Kelce. All of a sudden you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Now they're getting Travis Kelce out of Travis Kelce again. And everything about the offense to me is just unbelievable. I still can't get over that this is a 425 game. Like I'm so used to, hey, if it's Allen versus Mahomes, if it's Bills and Chiefs, we're going to see it Thursday night, Saturday night, or I'm sorry, Thursday night, Sunday night, or Monday night. And yet here we are, we get the treat in the middle of the day on a Sunday. I'm just telling you, I think, and I talked about it earlier in the show, I think there are some games this weekend that are going to be a little bit of a referendum on what do we do before the trade deadline. I definitely think this game, for the Bills in particular, they're sitting there and they've been kicking around wide receiver options on the trade market, trying to figure out, can we find maybe a low-end number 1 who is a legit number 1, like a Jacoby Myers maybe from the Raiders. And now with Ed Oliver, that injury, now they're sitting there and going, do we need to go out and look for a defensive piece where, we can plug somebody into that spot because that's such a massive loss for them. So what I love about this game coming right before the trade deadline, both these teams get to stare at each other and go, okay, we're going to find out now if we need something. Like, do we really need something versus the Bills? Do we really need something versus the Chiefs? And we have the opportunity to make that happen before the Tuesday trade deadline. But I definitely think for the Bills, it's a much bigger moment in terms of trying to find that measurement. Because as you said, Andrew, when you go through the schedule, they have not put up that quality win that you really expect. And this is the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, and I think I totally agree, C-Rob. And also, in a sense, maybe that's good for the Bills in that there aren't as many excuses, right? Like, if you're going to the Super Bowl, most likely you're going to have to go through the Chiefs. And probably the Bills, in their heart of hearts, they eventually want to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs and say, like, we did it en route to the Super Bowl as well. Now, obviously, if they didn't have to, that would be great. But it seems very likely they will. And now you have the Chiefs at as close to kind of full strength as they've been. I wrote a piece for Yahoo yesterday, just polled 5 Vegas odds makers. All of them now had the Chiefs atop their power ratings.
Yep.
Several of them for the first time this season. Because a lot of them had the Bills before the season. A lot of them had the Ravens. Some had the Eagles. This was the first time where it was unanimous. It was all the Chiefs. A couple odds makers actually had, as soon as Rashee Rice came back, they basically had put the Chiefs on top. So the Chiefs are high in Vegas's power ratings. Patrick Mahomes is the MVP favorite. The Chiefs are the Super Bowl favorite. It kind of seems like all is back to right in the NFL world, obviously, unless you're rooting against the Chiefs. I think the rushing attack is going to be huge in this game. I was a little surprised to look. The Bills actually have the number 1 rushing attack by DVOA, just ahead of the Colts. So this is going to be, I think, where they need to lean a little more. As we were saying, they don't necessarily have all the weapons. Josh Palmer limited in practice, whether or not he comes back. And you've seen Josh Allen forcing some balls, I think, that he hasn't in kind of past years, the past few games. So that offense hasn't necessarily looked as good as it could have. And kind of a sneaky injury, too. Matt Prater limited in practice as well the last 2 games. So most teams outside the New York Giants seem to have some sort of backup plan for a kicker if they can't go. But that is, these games tend to come down to the wire, no matter whether they're played in the regular season or the postseason. Kicking is important, and Prater has been very good this season for the Bills. So I expect this to also be a great game, a close game. But to your point, I do think if the Bills fans, especially if they lose this game, yes, it could determine where they play in January, but also just, hey, we thought we were at a certain place. Bills were supposed to be favored in every game this season. Back in May, this was Bills -2.5. Right now, this is Chiefs -2. The Bills are very, very rarely a home underdog under Josh Allen. This would be the second time since 2021. The first time was week 1 against the Ravens. Mm-hmm. So this doesn't happen often. The Chiefs are just kind of that team right now. And I think it'll be a great measuring stick for the Bills to see, hey, last year wasn't supposed to be our year. This year is supposed to be our year. What do we need to do at the trade deadline to make it happen?
Yeah, there are so many what ifs really with both these teams. You talk about the Bills pieces. We've unpacked the trade deadline a lot, and we're going to do that a lot next week as well. If I'm the Chiefs, I call the Jets about Breece Hall. Now, they've traditionally not gone big at running back the last how many ever years. They plug in pieces and parts and other people's cast-offs, and they find a way to make it work. But, why not call it out Breece Hall? The guy wants a new contract, and it might cost you a 3. Probably get him for less than that. Maybe you get him for a 4. That's just me. I think that would be a dynamic piece. Just me. Either way, it is the Chiefs and the Bills. And yes, it is at 4:25 Eastern time, not in prime time, because friendly reminder, CBS and Fox also pay a lot of money for these games, and they want those networks ping pong back and forth as to which one gets the big window at 4 o'clock. They want a massive game because that game always gets, when you have a standalone, maybe not a standalone, but a marquee game like this, it always gets a massive number. And this week it's going against Jaguars Raiders, and Saints Rams, So the majority of America will be watching this game, and for good reason. Early, however, in the day, at 1 p.m. Eastern time, you have the 1 seed in the AFC visiting the 4 seed in the AFC. And this is a CBS game with the Colts and the Steelers, with Ian Eagle, J.J. Watt calling his brother's game again for the second time in a month, and Evan Washburn down on the sideline. Indianapolis has the best record in the NFL. Raise your hand if you thought that would be the case week 9. Can we take the full shot here? Raise your hand if you thought that the Colts would have the best record in the NFL heading into week 9.
Really?
Okay, good.
No
one is putting their hand. No. I was just holding it up as an example. I did not think that.
I was like,
no.
I was like, I'm going to need to see some receipts, Andrew.
No. Absolutely not. But I think it should be pointed out that Indianapolis has, if you buy strength of schedule at this point in the season, I think it actually carries more weight now than it does in the offseason. The Colts have the third most difficult remaining strength of schedule. What stands out here to me is that while the Steelers are the 4 seed, meaning they're leading the AFC North, the AFC North is stunningly mediocre. The Steelers are the only team in the division that doesn't have a negative point differential. But the Steelers' point differential is right there, 0. It's even, right? That's kind of what they are. They're an average team with an awful defense. It's hard to put into words. We did it yesterday with the Bengals defense, how bad the Bengals defense is. But Charles, the Steelers' defense is 30th in the NFL in total yards and 22nd in the NFL, giving up 25 points a game. The yardage is the most allowed in franchise history if the season were to end today. And the points a game, the points allowed, would be the worst since 88 for the Steelers, like the Mark Malone, Bubby Brister era, when I believe like you had Browns players openly saying, we don't want to hurt Mark Malone. We need him in the game to win the game. I mean, that's how bad those teams were. And that's how bad this defense is. Mike Tomlin, you could tell, was kind of disgusted Tuesday on the podium in his own Mike Tomlin way. Hey, Cam Hayward said this. Do you agree with him? Yes, I generally agree with Cam.
That's Mike.
When he was questioning the toughness and the resilience of a team down the stretch. I think the Colts win. I think the Colts could win big in this game. But I'll say this, in terms of referendums on teams, if the Steelers can rise up and shut this Colts offense down, this to me could turn their season in a positive direction. And this to me could really set them up. I don't want to say to run away with the AFC North, but it puts them in a great position.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're number one, the number one scoring offense in football going up against the Steelers team that
against an awful defense.
Awful defense, but particularly the secondary is just a mess. You know, I mean, the Packers, the safeties, I don't even know the number of errors the safeties made against the Green Bay Packers last week. Just, I mean, stunningly, shockingly bad. And I don't have the figure in front of me, but I'm pretty certain that Steelers defense is the highest paid defense in the NFL this year.
Yes, it is.
I am positive of that. I wish I had the exact figure. It's just, I don't even know where you really begin, you know, how this ultimately gets resolved, because you can't fix an entire secondary. I mean, maybe if you can figure out how to apply more pressure up front, you're not going to swap those players out. I mean, it is what it is at this point.
Well, they got Kyle Duggar this week.
Yeah.
I mean they got Kyle Duggar, Deshaun Elliott's on the shelf. I mean, they tried out every free agent safety there is in the NFL. So they're trying, but to your point, mid-season fixes are hard.
Yeah, and also, you know, it takes guys, whether it's Duggar or anyone else, you come in your defensive trade like that, it takes you time to adjust to what the scheme is, what the calls are. I mean, and what typically happens when you're adjusting over the next 4 to 6 to 8 weeks. I remember one time I was talking to when Dave Ziegler was the GM of the Raiders, and he was trying to explain the trade deadline. We were talking, he said, look, man, I'm not kidding. Like certain positions, particularly if there's any complication to it, it could be 2 months before that player really truly picks up what you're doing and you have faith in him. Do you want to start plugging in those guys in the Steelers secondary? And during that time, what Ziegler was like, you know what happens? People make mistakes, and you feel like well, yeah, we're trying to upgrade, but in a way we sort of downgraded for a little while because we've got a player who's out there making mistakes as they pick things up. We're playing with limitations. I am panicked about the Steelers right now, and I just keep thinking about, Andrew, when we talked about Mo Tomlin going off on Andrew Berry for that Flacco trade, and we said it then. He's saying this because he knows there's another team that, now becomes functional in the AFC North. Yeah. Well, what we didn't know right then, functional might win the AFC North this year. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the division's coming. And I just don't know that the Steelers have enough resolutions on the table right now to stop one of these teams, whether it's Baltimore. Baltimore's got the favorable schedule to catch them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to take my victory lap yet, but when we were in Vegas and we were giving preseason, most disappointing teams, the Steelers was mine, and partially for this reason. Number one was, I think there was a lot of assumption that Aaron Rodgers would, one, play at a really high level the whole season, and two, be healthy all season. Now, he has been healthy so far, but we're also only in week 9. And the offense hasn't been able, I think we saw that against the Packers, right? They were moving the ball some, but kicking 50-yard field goals against good teams is not going to be a way to win that game. Like at halftime, they need to be up a lot more.
It did help me win my fantasy week, however. Thank you, Chris Boswell.
Fair. Can't take that away from him. The Steelers the defense, like you said, not very good and expensive is not a good combination. I think this is a fascinating game from a gambling perspective. I always talk about those lines, right? When they came out in May after the schedule, this was Steelers -3.5. Right now it's Colts -3. So that's over a 6-point move, right? All of a sudden. And the Steelers were favored in a lot of those early games. And that's why they did perform well. They won kind of the games they were supposed to. But the back half of their schedule was also always backloaded with a lot of these good teams where they have at the Chargers, they got the Bears, Bills, they play the Ravens twice, at Lions. So it's a much more difficult second half schedule. And that's why the Ravens are favored at sportsbooks to win the AFC North, even though they're only 2-5, potentially if they beat the Dolphins on Thursday night, 3-5. The Colts are really interesting. Obviously 7-1. Their preseason win total was 7.5. So I think that's going to cash the over. But if they win one more game, they will cash that. Tied with the Patriots, best record against the spread at 6-2. The public is all over the Colts in this game, as you would expect. Opened at 2.5 at some books. Sharp money pushed that up to 3. Right now it's Colts -3. Might even get up to 3.5. And the Colts have the number one team by DVOA, number one offense. Not only are they the number one offense, they are the 4th best offense through 8 weeks since 1978, with the number one team being the 2007 Patriots. So this offense has been historically good so far. Defense is also 12th, and they also they were 14.5-point favorites against the Titans, and that game wasn't particularly close either on the field or against the spread. So they keep covering these numbers as well that are higher and higher. There's not much more that they can do. And just one final note, because it's always interesting, I think, keeping track of some of the preseason wagers. Some bettor had some foresight, $8,000 at 125-1 on the Colts at Caesars to win $1 million. So that bet's out there. They haven't made the playoffs yet, but I think you're in good position to hedge, certainly if you have that ticket.
Not allowed. Yep.
One nugget too that I forgot. So I had a conversation this morning when Jory Epstein and I were working on this trade deadline piece that we're working on, and Colts. I think there's some buzz that like the sneaky team. Maybe if Cincinnati loses this weekend and Trey Hendrickson does all of a sudden become available after this weekend. Lou Anarumo obviously was formerly the Cincinnati Bengals defensive coordinator. And I'm telling you, the Colts know if we got lightning in a bottle right now, but we're going to have to get through Patrick Mahomes. We're going to have to get through quarterbacks in the AFC. If the Super Bowl is our aspiration, we're going to need to be able to apply pressure. And the defense is still that one, part of the very balanced team where they could make an improvement and just let's see what happens with Trey Hendrickson. And that could be a connection that all of a sudden we start to hear on Monday a little more strong.
I mean, he could practically commute.
Yeah.
You would have to move, but it's drivable between Cincinnati and Indianapolis. You talk about, we spoke yesterday or joked yesterday about like these random parameters that, the youngest to do this and that. And like we just kind of make up stats. Oh, he set a record. No, we just made up a number here. Here's the one, though, along those lines that got me this week for Indianapolis. And I have bad eyes here. Let me look down. All right, so they're the first team of the Super Bowl era, so 60 seasons, to, through 8 games, allow fewer than 10 sacks, have fewer than 4 or 5, rather, offensive turnovers. So that's never, I'm sorry, there was no third number. So fewer than 10 sacks and fewer than 5 turnovers in 8 games. 9 sacks, 4 turnovers. That's it for their offense. Like, you're not getting to Daniel Jones, and they're not turning the ball over, and therefore they are winning. And I'm losing with getting that out cleanly and reading it. I need glasses. My own writing here. Coming up. Charles mentioned the Bengals. Is this week a referendum on their season? And will it include Joe Flacco? We'll preview the Bengals and the Bears, what that one means, in our Week 9 preview show on Yahoo. You are watching Inside Coverage here on Yahoo. It is our Week 9 preview show. Andrew Siciliano, Charles Robinson, and our betting expert, Ben Fawkes. Again, this is an 8+3 week, 8 games early, 3 games late, 4 teams on the bye: the Browns, the Jets, the Eagles, and the Buccaneers. We don't have a name for this week, rivalry week or showdown, whatever, something alliterative. Not that, rivalry week is alliterative, but I feel like it should be called like Referendum Sunday or the Referendum Week, because, Charles, the way I think all of us kind of agree, like, framing these games, a lot of them, like a week before the trade deadline, a few days before the trade deadline, like, let's see what you got, and then teams have to decide accordingly about which way to proceed. And I think that certainly fits for the game coming up in in Cincinnati, with the Bengals and the Bears. It's a Spiro Ditas, Adam Archuleta, Aditi Kinkapwala game. As we sit here and record it on Thursday, Trey Hendrickson is very much up in the air whether or not he's going to be able to go for a Cincinnati defense that didn't touch the quarterback last week. Not an exaggeration. Didn't touch the quarterback last week. Do you know how difficult that is to do in a professional game? Didn't touch the quarterback. The bigger issue is Joe Flacco, who was able to get out there and do some throwing in the portion of practice open to the media on Thursday in Cincinnati. Jamar Chase was on the podium, said he looked like Joe. I didn't even know he was hurt, he said, which is what you expect your guy to say. Zach Taylor is keeping it open that it might be Jake Browning. If it is Jake Browning, and he was a great story a few years ago when Joe got hurt and he finished out the season. If it is Jake Browning, let me just give you some perspective about why they traded for Joe Flacco. He has the worst passer rating in the NFL. I don't know his QBR, Ben, however. The passer rating is 70.5. But just keep this in mind. Jake Browning has really only played 3.5 games. 3.5. This is week 9. He is second in the NFL in interceptions. Second. Geno and Tua are tied for the lead with 10, and Jake Browning has 8. So if Browning has to play this game against a Bears team that leads the NFL under Dennis Allen in his first season there as defensive coordinator in turnovers, and we don't see market improvement from Jake Browning, then this is a resounding Bears victory. But it's also interesting to see how Caleb Williams bounces back after, even though he kept the score close until the fourth quarter, not playing a good game last week against Baltimore. The Cincinnati defense is, and we talked about the Steelers defense earlier, awful. Really, other than the Browns defense, which, took a few punches last week from Josh McDaniels. AFC North defenses are awful this year. Steelers, Ravens, and the Bengals. The Bengals have missed, and there are different metrics, either 81, 84, or 94 tackles this season. 81, 84, or 94, depending on which metric you look at. The next
That's a lot.
team for missed tackles, Charles, is in the 50s. In the 50s.
Good God.
So the Bengals have roughly at least 30 more missed tackles than the next team. Look at Demetrius Knight with Carson Schlesinger hurt. Now he leads all NFL rookies with tackles. He's played well. He also has missed 15 tackles as well.
Yeah. So
there's a lot going on there. And I think this is, as you pointed out, Charles, a statement here for the Bengals. Are we in or are we out? The Bears, if they want to stay in this, need a victory here. And I think they need a resounding one.
Yeah. I think both teams, really. I mean, if you're the Bengals, I mean, what happened against the Jets? I mean, it's
worst loss of the year.
It's just such a I think for any team, honestly, particularly the way it unfolded. I mean, it's a scoring onslaught from a Jets team that could not get out of its own way. And as you said, I mean, you're watching it and there was just no ability to get remotely close to Justin Fields. And that had not been a problem prior to that game, for any other Jets opponent. And to me, I think when we, again, focusing in on the trade deadline, and so far, people will tell you that the Bengals have said Trey Hendrickson, we're holding on to him. And the feeling was the AFC North is soft. They still have an opportunity to claw their way up in the division. And so you want to keep your one player who you can get production out of in Trey Hendrickson. I think if they lose this game, the calculus changes there, particularly if Flacco does play and there's inefficiency there, or I just think this is a game they got to win to really keep themselves in that mindset of let's not be a seller with Trey Hendrickson at this deadline. But then I think conversely, you look at the Bears. I did a spot with WGN in Chicago on Monday, and it's just the frustration in Chicago right now with what's going on with Caleb Williams is just so overwhelming. And I think there's a lot that plays into it. They went through a season last year where they watched Jaden Daniels, take his team to the NFC Championship game and just the way he played, the poise he had. Now they're watching Drake May, another quarterback who they passed over to draft Caleb Williams. They're watching Drake May blossom and take all these big steps that they thought Caleb Williams would be taking right now with Ben Johnson. And instead, what you've gotten is Caleb Williams' off-target throw percentage is 21%. He's 31st in the league. The only quarterback who's been worse, we talked about it earlier in the show, is Michael Penix. That's shocking. You cannot be throwing with the type of accuracy that Caleb Williams is throwing with right now. And again, it has to do with a lot of the problems that he had coming in is you got to have good body mechanics. You got to make fast decisions. You have to be consistent. All the things that Jared Goff was giving Ben Johnson with the Detroit Lions. And then he goes and he signs up to work with Caleb Williams, a player who has an opposite trait set of a Jared Goff. And I think the fans are continuing to absorb this. Ben Johnson's getting frustrated again. They fire hosed the offensive scheme in training camp with him, just fed him everything, and then said, okay, we'll pare it down as we get into the season. And, that's the way ultimately we're going to teach this. It does not feel like it has taken hold the last couple of games. It feels like it's gotten worse. And one thing you will hear, a phrase that I think absolutely drives fan bases nuts and is a huge red flag, especially when you hear the quarterback, the coach, and multiple players say it. If they keep saying we're not on the same page and you're in week 8 to 9 of the season, you got problems, man. You got real problems. Yeah. And so this is a big game, I think, if Caleb Williams and that offense cannot blow up against this, I mean, in a good way, against this Bengals defense, I don't know where it goes.
Yeah, I think it was. So I will say first, I think that the Cardinals might take the cake against the Titans, and that crazy game is the worst loss of the season.
That's true. That's fair.
That's a good one.
That was a crazy one. But regardless, not a game the Bengals could afford to lose. And also, you would know better than I would, C-Rob, but the whole Joe Burrow coming back seems like a little of a fairy tale. It seems like mid to late December is the earliest he could potentially come back. And we always get into these okay, well, if they were, 7-8. Like, is he going to come back? So they're potentially a wild card, and he's partially healthy and go to wherever, Buffalo or New England. Like, so I think that was always potentially, maybe could happen, maybe not. But regardless, they're in the position they're in. Jake Browning has not looked good. To your point, Andrew, 31st in QBR, which is not where you want to be. And he's been bad. Joe Flacco, I mean, you have a sprained AC joint in your throwing shoulder, and they're hoping he's the guy who can play. They're like praying that Joe Flacco with a sprained
40.
shoulder at 40, right, is the guy who can go for you. That's the point they're in. Their defense is last in DVOA. They are last in yards per play. But I think also interestingly, the Bears are 30th. So this Bears defense, 30th in yards per play on defense, has not been amazing either. I think Caleb has improved some. He hasn't had the improvement that they would necessarily want. He's 18th in in QBR this year. He was 28th last year. I think the end of that game, though, was exactly kind of what you're talking about, C-Rob. And for those of us in certain, let's say, picks pools who might have been rooting for the Bears plus 6.5 at a stale number, the Bears going down the field in a 2-minute drill, they got to the 2-yard line and just had kind of a catastrophic sequence of events with an incomplete pass followed by something else. Caleb Williams tried for a QB sneak, which didn't go anywhere. And then on 4th down, the wide receiver wide open, and he just wings the ball through the end zone when you just have to, lay it up. There's nobody around him. The Ravens are, basically just trying to make sure time runs out. But that whole sequence, I think, was kind of a microcosm of just, if everything is running smoothly and efficiently. We saw this so much with the Lions under Ben Johnson and that offense. Everyone was on the same page. They were running trick plays with Penei Sewell, like they're pulling all these trick plays out of the bag, but also had the basics down and all of these concepts. The Bears just don't seem to be getting the small things right. And early in that game, they also kicked a couple field goals instead of going down and scored touchdowns. Paid for it later in the game. I'm a little surprised this game is only Bears minus 2.5 at the Bengals. I think potentially if Joe Flacco doesn't play, that line goes up a little more. But this really, to your point, is a must win for both teams. I think realistically for playoff hopes, the Bears have a shot. That is the game the Bears have to find a way to win against, again, a Bengals team that they would have been an underdog against with Joe Burrow before the season. So a game maybe you think before the season you're not supposed to win, now is a game you're supposed to win.
We only have like a minute remaining here, and we don't have time to flesh this one out, but it just hit me while we were talking about Caleb here. I realize it's only year 2. I was a fan at USC. I think he still does have a bright future, but we all agree, and we can see the look on Ben Johnson's face right now. It's frustrating that the light is truly not gone all the way on yet. If for whatever reason they decide after this season, hey, we're good. I was listening to Daniel Jeremiah this morning with Rich Eisen, and Rich asked him point blank, hey, who's the top pick? Who's the number 1 pick next year? And he goes, I have no earthly idea. Like, it could be Mendoza. It could be any quarterback that gets hot in the college football playoff. But, there is no obvious answer. So if that's the case, and again, more time to flesh this out later, like, what does it take to get Caleb off the Bears' hands? Maybe the Bears go veteran in Ben Johnson's system, like a Mac Jones, and I'm just spitballing here. Totally spitballing here. Like, what would Caleb Williams cost? And what would you, if you're one of the other 31 teams, maybe one that needs a quarterback, what would you invest in a year 3 reclamation project when there has been some spectacular, but a lot of frustrating? I don't know. We're not there yet. It's only week 9. I was just thinking out loud on that one. Anyway, gentlemen, have fun trick-or-treating. All right? If you do dress up, be sure to take photos. Yeah? Put them in the group chat.
We're going to start calling you Mav.
Call me Mav. Because we were inverted.
Yeah, we were inverted. A block and B block.
Yes, exactly. Maintaining foreign relations is what we were doing in a 3G negative dive with a MiG-28. Everyone, seriously, be safe out there. trick-or-treating. Be friendly. Be kind to your neighbor. Go get some candy. Be sure to brush your teeth, kids, as well. Charles, Ben, I'm Andrew. Enjoy Week 9, everybody. This is Inside Coverage.